What's happening, people? Very good evening to you all. It's your boy, the Boxing Lowdown here, and I'm delighted to bring to you episode number 70 of the Boxing Lowdown podcast, man. And as always, I've got my guy right here with me, my co-host, my father, the main man, Mr. Controversial, Laurie Lyle in the building, man. How's it going?
I'm blessed, man. It's good to be back, and I'm looking forward to this one. But before I do that, hold on.
God, what's he got now? Is that someone's sweat?
This is a special toast to a great trainer, a legendary trainer, goes by the name of Dominic Ingle. So, Dom, this is for you.
You know, Dom follows me on Instagram. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, hope he sees it.
But
man.
before anyone out there gets the wrong idea, it's not sweat; it's actually mineral water. So. But yeah, man, listen, I am so excited about this fight, man. Honestly, I mean, it's interesting because there's been a lot of conjecture before the fight. People saying, if they fight, who cares? Nobody cares. They're well past their best. I'll tell you something, bro. There is genuine excitement for this fight. And as I've said to you before on this show, I can always tell when a fight has captured the imagination of the public. Is that I work in quite a busy office with quite a lot of young people. And whenever they start asking me about, Laurie, who do you think's going to win? You know that there's a lot of interest around the fight. So to all those naysayers out there who said, it was too late, nobody cares, who wants to see it, they're well past their best, whatever. They've been totally wrong. Because this, I would say that I'm probably looking forward to this fight more than any other fight in 2022. Would you agree?
What, that's been announced?
Yeah, you think of all the fights we've seen so far in the lead up to it, this year so far, I would say that this one, I'm more excited by this one because the Fury Wilder was last year, wasn't it? So I'm talking 2022. We're now, I mean, it's only a couple of months in, but, you know, I'm more excited for this fight than I was Eubank Williams. And I was excited for that fight. So I think that's fair enough, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, right now, of what's announced anyway. Yeah, I'd say so. Let me just pick up everybody in the comment section first of all, man. You guys know the drill. Hit the like button on the way in. Share the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Shout out to my guy, as always, Harvey in the building. Always first here. Harvey has said, big up to Harvey, man. Good to see you here, brother. Francisco in the building as well. He's put here, do your thing, brothers. Michael Maxwell says here, good work, guys. Good having you all here, man. IB has said here, big ups. Thoughts on Ryder on the weekend. Seems like a lot of controversy, but one round swing either way seems fair, though. I think Jacobs deserved it. However, poetic justice almost for Ryder finally winning. Let's quickly touch on that before we get into Khan-Brook and that preview. Let me know what you think about that fight there between John Ryder and Danny Jacobs that took place over the weekend, Laurie.
Home cooking, bro.
Yeah? What? You thinking what? A robbery? What?
I'm kind of leaning towards robbery, man, because I actually watched that fight twice. And I'm still struggling to see how John Ryder won that fight. And if you remember, I actually picked Ryder to win. So it's not like I'm being biased against him. Listen, I'm kind of pleased for him because he's been a bit of a nearly man. He's had a couple of decisions not go his way, most notably the fight with Callum Smith. So let's face it, he should have been a world champion by now. But we have to judge fights on their individual merits. And he did not win that, bro. No, he did not win that fight. You could say it was close. But I would not go as far as to say that I thought Ryder won. I thought Jacobs won by a couple of rounds. So it's probably not... It's not as bad as, say, what's the guy? Oscar Valpez versus Conceição. Wasn't as bad as that. But I thought that Jacobs did enough to win. He won most of the early rounds and he nicked the last couple. He definitely won the 12th. So, yeah, man, I had Jacobs winning. But you know what? John Ryder is a nice guy. I'm not saying that should automatically give you a fight when it goes close or when it's deemed close. But I did think that Jacobs won by at least 3 rounds, maybe even more than that, to be honest with you, in the final analysis. I know he did have a sort of mid-fight slip when Ryder appeared to take control briefly, hurt Jacobs, You know, had him looking uncomfortable and hurt a couple of times. But come on, man, it's a 12-round fight. And
seems like everybody in the comments agrees here. Everybody's
yeah.
saying Jacobs won 116, 112. I'm seeing Ash was there. He said Ryder didn't win it. And I've seen a lot of sentiment out there. People saying, you know, if anyone deserves this sort of thing, is Ryder, which I get. But listen, man, that's not how we're supposed to. Two wrongs don't make a right.
Exactly.
Two wrongs don't make a right.
And that's why boxing's kind of effed up in that way, because people think that that kind of thing is okay. It's not. Even John Ryder himself, you could tell in those post-fight interviews. I'm not sure if you saw the post-fight interviews.
Nah.
His celebrations and his whole demeanor was a little bit understated for me. It was almost like somebody who knew deep down they'd been gifted something that they didn't really deserve. I mean, I know he's a pretty understated guy anyway. He doesn't go around hooping and hollering. But you know what I'm saying? I just got that from him. His body language and the way he was talking was like, yeah, you know, I thought I did enough to nick it. And, you know what I mean? Yeah, I thought, no, you didn't. You don't really believe that, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, listen, Danny Jacobs coming to England and accepting a fight like that, I was always quite surprised.
Yep.
He would have got a decent bag for this, although that hasn't been revealed. And I think that's kind of implicit when you take a fight like, let's face it, he didn't need to take this fight, even though they're billing it as an eliminator. It's not an official eliminator. And just the mere fact that he took that fight suggested to me before that his ambition might not be wholly there and that he'd done it for the bag. Now, if you accept the largesse, you've got to also expect that if it goes close, you're not going to get any love on the cards. And that's exactly what happened.
What did you think of the Felix Cash fight on the undercard?
You know what I'm going to say as well? I thought Felix Cash is lucky to get out of there with a win, bro. You know what I mean? I mean, listen, people were saying that Beterbiev, apart from the rounds, he got the knockdowns in. I had Cash winning. That's not accurate at all. He definitely won a couple of those rounds. You know what I mean? First round. Yeah, I mean, he won rounds in that fight, man. And so if he's had 2 knockdowns and a point taken away from Cash, he's supposed to come out of there with at least a draw, isn't he? Surely. Just by virtue of the scorecard. So I didn't really agree with that either. And I kind of forced myself to revise my and that can often happen. So maybe should be a little bit more conservative when it comes to expressing my opinions on potential of fighters. But if you remember, I was bigging up Felix Cash, saying, yeah, man, he's the next big thing. I was forced to reappraise that when I watched that fight, because Beterbiev had him backing up, and he didn't look that good when he was backing up, man, I must admit. A lot of his work looked rushed. He looked a bit uncomfortable, a bit sort of, I don't know, man. It wasn't a very well coordinated performance. Don't get me wrong, he did box well in spurts, and he did show a lot of heart to get down from the knockdown. He was hurt to the body a couple of times as well. But it was interesting because that guy is a tough, rugged guy, but he's not a puncher. I think of all the stoppages he's had, I think only 3 had come by stoppage. So that was obviously why he was selected for this fight, although he is a good fighter. But it could be argued that he deserved better on the cards, man. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, bit of disagreement here in the comments. We got Punch Smollett. He thinks that the Russian won. Stefan said Felix Cash only lost the rounds he got dropped in. Ash is also saying Cash won 7 or 8 out of the rounds. He had it 94-93 to Felix Cash. So guess it was that kind of fight, really, where there's a bit of disagreement there. Ash has also said here, I still think that Felix Cash is decent. He's had a lot of family trouble recently. He was crying in his post-fight interview. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt for this one.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. But I did see a few things that did give me cause for concern, I have to say. He's far from the finished article, obviously. And this will be a good learning fight for him. So you know what? He got the win. He knows what it's like to go down and get back up. He did handle that well, I thought. But there was a few other things, man, that made me think maybe he's not quite ready yet. And it's interesting because he'd spent the week in the lead up to that fight talking about how he'd like to smash Eubank around the ring and all that. After watching that on Saturday, I'm not saying he's not capable of beating Eubank, but he wouldn't be favourite, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's got some more comments here with regards to the Cash fight. Mohammed says here, if I was an American fighter, I would never come to fight in the UK. And some breaking news here, Laurie. I want to get your thoughts on this because I was going to touch on it. Don't know how true it is, but it has come from Mike Coppinger. He said that because there was an offer, PBC came with an offer for Charlo and Benavidez. They upped their offer, but Mike Coppinger has just said that Canelo has turned it down, upwards of 100 million guaranteed for Charlo and Benavidez, and instead is pushing for Hearn's offer of Bivol and Triple G. IB has said here as well, I also saw a poll and the majority of people preferred Canelo taking on Triple G and Bivol. It's honestly baffling. So,
you know what? Those people consist of people like Shane and also people like Canelo fanboys who want to see him hold on to his current winning streak, because nobody can convince me that Triple G and Bivol is a better combination than Benavidez and Charlo. Nobody. You know what I mean? That's outrageous. All those people who voted in that poll are just doing that because they think that Canelo's got a better chance of holding on to his belts by fighting Bivol and a washed up Triple G. You know what I mean? That can be their only reason. I mean, like I said, Shane, he's going to want Canelo to fight Bivol because he's a Bivol fanboy. He's admitted that. The rest of them, come on, man? Like, it's just ridiculous. How would you rather see Charlo and Benavidez? It's way better fights for the public to watch than bloody Bivol and Triple G. You know what I mean?
What about Bivol, then Benavidez or Charlo? That would be perfect, says Stefan. He said he's got no interest in the Triple G trilogy. Michael Maxwell says he's ducking. Conrad is saying here, get the lower risk fights out of the way first. Asher said here, I'd like a mix, Bivol and Benavidez for me. Big Lou, shout out to my bro Big Lou. He said here, Canelo loses respect if he chooses Triple G over any of the others. Big up the Boxing Lowdown. Yes, Big Lou, big up yourself, bro. So yeah, I think, you know what? People are starting to come around because I remember last week you were saying this. There was a few people that were like not really hearing what you were saying. Maybe that was more the Bivol shout, but the Triple G shout, nah, not for me, man.
It's noticeable that in those comments there, not one person said that they want to see Triple G. Nobody wants to see Canelo fight Triple G. Nobody. Well, you know, the Dan Raphaels, maybe the Steve Kims, the Doug Fishers. You know, all the fanboys of Canelo who want to see him hold on to his belt. So they want to see him go in against a washed-up version of Triple G so they can say, oh, he beat him easy this time. You know what I mean? Wow. Come on, man. Yeah. And you know, the ironic thing about it is we all know what's been happening with Charlo recently. And I've been calling Charlo out on this show for a while now. So, and me and you have argued on this show about this, where I've said, look, the guy does not live the life. And we're seeing that time and again with this guy. You see, every time you see a picture of him, it's either a mugshot or it's some picture of him drinking or look like he'd been drinking, puffy face here all over the place. The guy's spiraling out of control. So although I do want to see that fight, if you're Canelo, you should be sitting there thinking, yeah, now is the time to go get him. You know what I mean? I mean, you were talking the other day about how you was disappointed that Conor Benn is calling out Broner because he's calling him out because he knows he's at a, you know what I mean, a pretty bad time in his life. Well, if Canelo's smart, that's one of the ways to knock off one of your one of the guys who everybody says you're ducking. Surely, I'll be getting that contract offer to him right now. You know what I mean? But even then, it seems that Canelo doesn't want to smoke with Charlo. So, what does that tell you, Darren? Well, what does that tell you? We know he's ducking Benavidez. He's been doing that for a while as well.
I think a lot of people will come to this conclusion here, and that's Charlo is the more fan-friendly fight. It's the more appealing fight in terms of it on commercial value and just the build-up and everything else. It'll draw more people in. It's more exciting. The Bivol fight is a tougher fight, though, according to Stefan and maybe some others.
Is it? Is it really? What, the same Bivol that struggled with Craig Richards? The same Bivol that looked very lackluster in his last fight, even though he well won it. He didn't look $1 million, did he? Why do you think Canelo is pursuing that option, bro? You know what I mean? Canelo's not a silly guy, you know. Say what you want about him. And I say on this show every week, his career is very strategically managed. They sit down and they assess their opponents. And the fact that he's pursuing this fight with Bivol with so much vigor, to me, tells you everything you need to know. You know what I mean?
So you're not having that. That's not a credit. That's not a credible win. That's not a credible win for you then.
It's credible, but it's not the type of fight that most people want to see. Listen, I've got my doubts whether Bivol is going to really commit to winning that fight. Seriously, I've got my doubt. We've seen it with a lot of Canelo opponents. You know what I mean? That they turn up, they want Pede, or they want to say they want to go the distance, or even the guys that did talk that shit, they talk smack before the fight. And then in round 11, they're asking Canelo, how do you think I'm doing? You know what I mean? Am I doing all right? Yeah. So you like it? Yeah. Not bad, eh?
Yeah,
it's the attitude. And I think with Charlo, based on what I've seen of him hitherto, I mean, like I said, he looks like to me that Charlo is going down that sort of dark road, man, where if he's not careful, he's going to sink into the abyss of his behavior outside the ring. But previously, hitherto, he's always been an aggressive guy who punches with bad intentions, who will go in there and he'll try and knock the guy out. That's why I'm surprised that people want to see Bivol over Charlo. Because Canelo probably beats both of those two, yeah? He definitely beats Bivol for me. I can't see Bivol's got no chance against Canelo.
Let me ask you a quick question.
He's not going to put a dent in Canelo. The fight's going to go to the cards and Canelo's going to win 9 rounds to 3.
Let me ask you a quick question. Do you have pound for pound? Would you have Charlo over Bivol, pound for pound, or the other way around? I know styles make fights and all that stuff, and obviously there's more to it than that because the commercial appeal and everything else. But who do you have higher in your pound for pound? I'm not saying either of them are in the top 10, but
that's a good question. Actually, I would say that Bivol is probably more skilled, but Charlo is the all-round better fighter. I would say that.
Okay,
if you see it, that makes sense, right? So
yeah, it does.
Bivol has certain skills. You know what I mean? He got a very good jab. He's very fundamentally solid. He does the right things, you know what I mean, in terms of stuff like that. But he's got no special effects.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's not going to go there and bring it, you know what I mean? And I think Charlo, you know what I mean, when he's on his game, man, he's a very devastating fighter. Very explosive, very, you know what I mean, athletic. And I don't think Bivol carries any of that.
Shout out to IB here. He said here, and I was going to talk about this later, but since you brought this up, I know we're supposed to be talking about Khan-Brook, but we got a lot of time for that. On the bright side, I saw Beterbiev come out in a video and he said he was open to fighting Demetrius Andrade because Andrade is looking to move up. And there were also, I think he also said that he's hearing that Jamal Charlo and Caleb Plant were fighting next. So in the meantime, he'll fight Demetrius Andrade, which is what a lot of people like myself were saying last week. Like, if they're not going to get the Canelo payday, let them fight each other. And to Benavidez's credit, he is just about doing that. Who calls out Demetrius Andrade other than the mandatory? So if that comes off, there are 2 great fights there. Charlo and Plant, Benavidez and Andrade. Who wins them both for you?
I'll tell you who wins that. Canelo. You know why? Because that strategy that he's working on, which is to let the others bump each other off in the meantime, that's what, you know what I mean? That's what's going to happen. And it's interesting with the Benavidez and Andrade potential matchup because I saw an interview where David Benavidez's coach, his dad, or was it his promoter, somebody connected with him in the hierarchy of his camp, was suggesting that Andrade is a harder fight for them than Canelo. He actually said that. He goes, look, we feel Andrade will give us more problems than Canelo will. Now, that's an interesting take on it. You can call it bravado and chutzpah and all the rest of it. But I thought he was being genuine because let's face it, man, if you're Benavidez, man, Canelo's kind of made for you, really, isn't it? Shorter, less long in terms of his reach. He's going to come at you, you know what I mean? Whereas Andrade, he's going to be the same height or similar height, long reach, good boxing skills, movement, all of those things that Canelo is not as good at. So it is a harder fight for them technically. Now, I don't think maybe Andrade's punches as hard as Canelo does, although Andrade does hit hard enough to earn people's respect. You can ask Liam Williams about that and 1 or 2 other people. And let's face it as well. Andrade, does he have as good a chin as Canelo? Probably not, because Canelo does have one of the best chins in boxing. But listen, man, I think Andrade will be a difficult night's work for any of those guys.
I think Benavidez beats him. I think Benavidez too big, too active. I think he might. Yeah, I think he beats Andrade. I'd have him as the favorite over Andrade.
I'd have him
Andrade,
as favourite. I'd have, but
yeah.
then I'd possibly have him as favourite over Canelo, though. And I tell you what, as well, those guys, right? I'm going to put everyone on notice now. Those guys better sort their shit out soon, because there's a guy fast emerging on the horizon. Now, a guy by the name of David Morrell, Cuban guy.
Mhm.
And from what I've seen of him, if he can progress the way he's doing now, I'll tell you what, man, he's going to be a problem.
What about Plant and Charlo? Stefan says here Plant beats Charlo, but I'm not sure.
No, I'm not sure about that.
I'm not sure, Stefan. I think
No.
Charlo might beat him.
Again, with Charlo, there is that factor of the way he's conducting himself outside the ring.
Yeah.
Again, if I'm Plant, I want that fight with Charlo. This is the time to get him if you're going to get him, because the guy is not living the life. He's getting in a lot of trouble outside the ring. I don't think he's training as hard as he should be. You often see him turning up at these little social functions drunk or clearly under the influence of something. And he's not on it the way he should be on it. And one thing I can say about Caleb Plant, he's always in the gym. He always looks in shape, ready to go. So I'm sure they're taking that into consideration when they're talking about a fight with Charlo.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're smart, they're probably thinking, now is the time to get that name on our resume. You know what I mean? But watch out for this guy, Morrell, man. I've seen him a couple of times and he looks to have everything. Height, reach, athleticism, punching power, skills, confidence. He seems to have the whole lot. We don't know yet about the chin at the highest level. You never really know that until he goes in there with the top echelon. But we do know he's an outstanding amateur as well. Another one off the Cuban production line. This guy looks good. You know what I mean? Very good. And from what the reports I'm reading and hearing, he's going to be something, man. So these guys better sort out their little stuff soon before this guy, you know what I mean, gets up there.
To be fair to Beterbiev, he seems like the one that's like he'll fight anyone. I haven't really seen him move a bit flaky with anyone. I've seen Charlo do it with Benavidez. I've seen, like, do you know what I mean? Other guys do it, but Benavidez seems to be the one. Okay, he wants to fight me, I'll fight him.
Yeah.
So
I think to be fair to Andrade, man, he's been calling
Andrade as well. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there was that slight question mark against Andrade where they said that he pulled out of a fight with
Charlo
some years back, but according to Andrade, and I've got no reason to disbelieve him, he said that he was going through promotional dispute at the time, and he that's why he never took the fight. Now, I'd have to give him the benefit of the doubt on that, because he doesn't have a history of ducking. You know what I mean? Whereas one or two other people do have a history of ducking. We know who they are. You know what I mean? So, listen, man, I guess if you're the so-called, not in my book, but in a lot of other people's books, pound for pound, the cash cow, as they like to say, then, you know what I mean, you're going to be able to pick and choose who you fight, which is what he does. So then you can see why he would prefer the Triple G and Bivol option over the Charlo and Benavidez. Well,
nothing confirmed yet, so we'll see what happens. But again, like last week, we were saying it was going in that direction. Then we heard this week that it could be Charlo and Benavidez again, and now we're hearing that it could be Canelo and Triple G again. I mean, Triple G and Bivol again. So we'll see. We'll see what happens here. IB has said here, Morrell won an interim WBA belt in his third fight. That was impressive. So yeah, this is one guy to watch for the future for sure, Laurie.
Absolutely.
Let's get onto it, man. Let's get onto what we're really here for this weekend. This fight, 7-8 years in the making. Just unbelievable here. The hype for it has been absolutely crazy this weekend. Khan-Brook finally getting it on. The grudge match will finally be settled. Where do I even start, man? Just first of all, did you see the press conference today?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that's how excited I was about the fight. I couldn't wait to watch the press conference. I think that was around about 2 p.m. UK time. And not surprisingly, I found time in the office to just go to one side with my lunch and just sit there and watch it. And it did not disappoint, you know what I mean? And it's funny, really, because previously I wouldn't have said that Amir Khan is the greatest of trash talkers. But Kell-Brook actually makes Amir Khan look like a good trash talker, because Kell can't really talk like that, you know what I mean? He's one of those guys who does his fighting in the ring. He's not very good at selling fights, but in a weird kind of way, Kel's been very entertaining in this as well. You know what I mean? A lot of people saying, "Oh, we lost, the gloves are off," and this and that. Listen, bro, that doesn't mean anything come fight night, but it is entertaining in the lead up to it. And yes, you could say that Khan definitely came across as the more composed and the more chirpy and the more, you know what I mean? Okay, if you want to say he won, the gloves are off, fine, he won it, but that's not going to make any difference come fight night.
Is Kel getting too angry? Is Kel building up too much anger in there? Is this a plan from Khan? Like today, I didn't even get to see, like Harvey, I didn't even get to see the Bomac and Dominic Ingle because Sky took it down. So I didn't see it. But my observations so far from Kell-Brook in the gloves are off. I thought it was, I'm not gonna lie to you, like, man, I thought it was a bit weird that Kell-Brook is so desperate for Khan to respect him. Like, what's this all about? Like, I don't know, maybe he didn't articulate it right, but you know, he's building up a lot of anger for me. And I think maybe because he's finally getting in there with Khan now, will he be able to keep his emotions in check on Saturday night?
You know what, Daryl, you do make a good point, but I actually find that quite refreshing because what we can take from that is that this is not manufactured beef. You could see when Kelly's talking that he genuinely despises Amir Khan. You can see it. It's coming out of his pores of his soul, you know what I mean? Whereas Amir Khan, he probably doesn't hate Kell-Brook that much.
I don't think he does. He's trolling a lot of the time.
I think he does look down his nose at Kell, which is why Kell don't like him. You know, Amir's got that kind of arrogance about him. He's always had it. Amir's always had this kind of over-inflated opinion. That's why for a lot of his career, he's not been popular in this country. Is that fair to say? A lot of people have not liked him. He's talked about himself in the third person. He's often said things like, "I'm on the same level as Mayweather and Pacquiao." Remember, it used to be going on, "I'm with those guys." And I'm like, no, you're not. You got knocked out in a round by Brady Prescott. You know what I mean? You've been beaten by people like Lamont Peterson and things like that. You were very lucky, in my opinion, to get the nod over Marcus Maidana when he had you running around the ring. You got knocked out cold by Danny Garcia. So you are not on the level of Pacquiao and Mayweather and Peter. And he used to talk, and the thing is, Amir he wasn't saying any of this with a sense of irony. You could see that he actually meant that. He actually thought that. So he does have a habit of looking down his nose at people, for want of a better expression. And I just think that Kell has taken that personally because he's obviously been on the end of some of Amir Khan's snide remarks over the years. You know what I mean? Some of them have got a bit personal as well, where he's like calling Kell-Brook gay and questioning what happened in Spain that time, and you know what I mean, and stuff like that. When, let's face it, Amir Khan's got a far from spotless record himself when it comes to things like this. You know what I mean? There's one or two stories doing the rounds about him that are not very savory.
Well, Kell-Brook brought that up. Kell-Brook brought that up as well.
More than one. I can think of a few. I'm not going to go into them now here, but those of you who know. Amir Khan well. If you was to Google stuff like that, you would see quite a few things that would probably raise your eyebrows. Put it that way. So he's got a checkered past himself. But to go back to Kell, I'm just trying to look at things from his perspective. He probably thinks, listen, I've known this guy from the amateurs, grown up with him. We've both grown up, come up through the amateur ranks, box for England. Yes, Amir Khan went on to become a star. He won the silver medal. Very impressive performance, I might say. Gone on to have a very good career. Although I think with Amir, I think it is fair to say that maybe he could be deemed that he's slightly underachieved, given what the expectations of people had for him, especially when you look at some of the losses. I would argue that, yeah, I think so. I think if you look at the two records,
he's achieved a lot.
He has achieved a lot, but I think for that kind of, you know what I mean, what people were expecting, the superstar status, he didn't really achieve that. I don't think so. I actually think that Kell-Brook's win over Sean Porter, to me, is better than any of Amir Khan's wins. What do you think?
What, better than the Marcus Maidana win?
Yes. Don't forget, he went over to...
I don't know.
Well, okay, even if you don't agree readily, it's food for thought, isn't it? But I would say, personally, I've looked at the two records, and I would say that, yes, Amir Khan has more of those type of world title wins. But I think that Kell Brook's win over a peak Sean Porter in his own backyard. Don't forget, Sean Porter was coming off that mauling, absolute mauling of Paulie Malignaggi. Remember when he absolutely decimated Paulie Malignaggi, and Kell traveled over to America in Sean's backyard and beat him. So yeah, man. So anyway,
listen, I think
one of the reasons why Kell's got so much sort of enmity towards Khan is that he feels that Khan's disrespected him over the years by making him snidey comments, and that he's kind of looked down on him. So he sees this as his comeuppance, as his chance for vengeance, and it makes for a great story.
I didn't see this. See, Mr. Moody's like when Dominic made the comment about cleaning.
That's true.
I didn't see it, man. I didn't see it. I need to see it. I need to see it. IB said here, I think Khan falls in love with his stardom and paydays of the past, and I think it's exactly that envy which gets under Kell's skin. There's got to be a bit of envy there. There's got to be.
Yeah, I'm sure there is, but I think, like I said, I think Kell feels he's been disrespected. He feels that Khan's got an overinflated sense of self, which I think he has as well. I mean, listen, Khan, remember he's falling out with people like Carl Froch and people like that. You know what I mean? Khan does put himself up there at a level that I don't think he's belonged at. In spite of him being
but look, Khan, in terms of him being a star, there's no doubt about that. He's achieved superstar status in the UK, I believe. He's definitely a celebrity over here. Khan has got some fantastic wins as well, man. I think of them like the Marcus Maidana one. Based himself in America for a little while. Beat the hell out of Devin Alexander. One of his best wins that was. Battered Zab Judah. Absolutely battered him. One of his best wins there as well. I think he's got more of them.
I did say that. I did say that he's got more wins, but for me, the best win on both fighters' records to me is the Kell Brook beating a prime time Sean Porter in his backyard when he was a champion. For you to go to America and unseat the champion like that, to me, that was very, very impressive.
One thing that disappoints me about Khan is the fact he never avenged any of his rematches.
There you go. I was about to say that. He didn't even want to avenge the Brady's Prescott win. Yeah. When Brady's Prescott knocked out Khan in a round, he was literally bit. I thought it was ironic that he was the man that destroyed Khan in a round, and he was almost begging Khan for the rematch. And it was clear that Amir didn't want it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was clear that he didn't want it. So I don't think you could say that about Kell Brook. He's never, he's always been seeking the big fights. I mean, the man took on Golovkin. You know what I mean? Which is, he jumped up 2 weeks to take on Golovkin. I know Amir did a similar thing when he took on Canelo. But if you remember at that time, there was a lot of talk about Amir Khan fighting Kell Brook at that time. And then next week, he jumped up a couple of weights to fight Canelo, which I thought was a crazy decision. Some people were saying that he did it because he was avoiding Kell Brook. Now, I don't know.
Diaz has said here, I think both of them have underachieved. Kell more so. I think Kell's problem for me is that he basically did what Amir Khan was doing to Mayweather, where putting your career on hold because you're literally chasing this guy down. There was a time when Brook beat Porter. Okay, we wanted to see the Amir Khan fight. Do you know what I mean? He had a world title. It was on the line. But that welterweight division at the time was thriving. It always is. You had the likes of Keith Thurman there. Floyd Mayweather was still about, but he was on his way out. You had Danny Garcia in there. There were some great fights to be made for Kell. But due to his own downfall and his own issues out of the ring, we never got to see him capitalize on that win when he got that belt. He defended it against the likes of a Frankie Gavin and Jojo Dan and those guys. And then by the time he did fight someone, Errol Spence, he lost it. So, and he already lost to Golovkin before that. So Kell didn't capitalize for me when he won that belt, man. And I think that's what DS is referring to here, where he could have achieved a lot more when he won that belt. Because I would have probably, him and Keith Thurman, that would have been a pick'em for me at the time.
Yeah. I agree. No, listen, what you said there makes a lot of sense. It's no secret. It's no secret in the game at all. I'm going back years now, and we've all heard Kell Brook stories over the years. Everyone has. You don't even have to be particularly close to the game to have heard them. And we've heard some of the more lurid stuff as well. So, hey, So we know that the guy doesn't live the life outside the ring. And even in this fight, remember a couple of months ago when they had the press conference, he looked like a little bit overweight to me, you know what I mean? Although he looks in fantastic shape now. So, and even Amir Khan as well, he's admitted in the past that when he's not got a fight coming up, he doesn't always live the best life in terms of the way he goes about things either. So I think it's a similar type of thing, to be honest.
Yeah.
In fact, I can remember when Amir Khan got with Virgil Hunter, I can remember watching an interview where Virgil Hunter said he sat Amir Khan down and said, listen, if you want to reach the levels of an Andre Ward, which is who Virgil Hunter trained at that time, he goes, you've got to be an all year round fighter. I remember reading that, seeing that, and I was thinking, really and truly, shouldn't really have to be telling Amir Khan that, really, should you? And Virgil Hunter was saying he's been impressing on Amir Khan the need to keep himself in the gym year round. Okay, you can have little breaks here and there, but you should not be disappearing from the gym for months on end, waiting to get the call for a fight. But anyway, that's how those guys have lived their lives. So, hey, it is what it is.
Some more breaking news here quickly before we continue with this preview. Oscar Valdez and Shakur Stevenson has just been announced for April 30th. We know that the contracts were about to be signed, but they've both been signed now, and that has been made official. Oscar Valdez and Shakur Stevenson the same day as Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. So
I just hope that somewhere in that contract, man, Stevenson's going to ask for VADA testing, regular VADA testing as well, because we've seen what Oscar Valdez is about when it comes to stuff like that. You know what I mean? The man's a known drugs cheat. Yeah. And I'm not being libelous or in any way. It's on the record that he's failed drug tests before. So if I was Stevenson, even allowing for his confidence, I would make sure that that side of things is being taken care of. Because if I was him, I would not trust Oscar Valdez as far as I could throw him. You know what I mean? Because let's face it, if he's capable of taking it for Consancheo and other people, then he's capable.
I think the eyes will be on him now, though. I think eyes will be on him. And Shakur Stevenson, he's coming to, I'm not saying Consancheo wasn't coming to him, but he brings enough clout to, push that testing to be there. Yeah, and, he carries the card as well as Oscar Valdez does. So I think, hopefully that won't be an issue.
To me, him insisting on that is almost as important as him insisting on the purse and stuff like that, because seriously, don't trust those guys, man. But anyway, that's for him to sort out.
I'm loving all these comments, by the way, on Khan-Brook, man. We still got a lot to talk about this, and I'm loving this comparison here from Francisco, because I know this rivalry deeply between Vargas and De La Hoya, man. It was one that I really enjoyed growing up, and I was a huge Fernando Vargas fan. And he's saying that this, Francisco's obviously based over there in the US, and he's saying that this reminds him of Vargas and De La Hoya, the way how Vargas despised De La Hoya, and De La Hoya did always think that Vargas was beneath him. But, they were closer to their primes when they fought.
You say that, but I don't know, because
they weren't in their primes. So I said they were closer to their primes than Brook and Khan are.
Yeah, but I remember Vargas going into that fight with Oscar. He'd already been knocked out brutally a few times. So I think, I can see where the reference is, though. I can see that.
DS is saying here, prime for prime, I'd always say Brook, but now I'm going for Khan knockout round 7. So, Stefan here, Kell Brook's career has been heavily mismanaged. Some of it is his own doing. It's a real shame, as Kell has definitely underachieved more. IB has said here, was Khan not ahead on the cards against Canelo? He got knocked out, but he fought well up until then. Yeah, he did. I thought out of the first 5 rounds, I thought he definitely won, 3 or 4 of them. But Canelo worked his way in it late, didn't he?
Well, but it seemed to me as if Canelo was doing what he does a lot, which is pace himself for the fight, waiting for the opportunity to land. And when he did land, it was all she wrote, out cold, So, you could say that Amir Khan was possibly ahead on the cards. But to me, I always saw that fight as Canelo being in control of what was going on, to be honest.
Shout out to WM in the building, man. Big up to WM. I want to hear, basically this fight here. Okay, we've spoken about it. Do you know what I mean? WM is Team Khan, as he's saying right here. How do you see it playing out then? Because like I said, both of these guys have been pretty inactive. Brook has been out of the ring since November 2020. Khan has been out of the ring since July 2019. Both of them are out of their prime. Both of them have suffered, you know, some bad defeats. Brook, probably one of his more devastating defeats against Terence Crawford, who is now in the corner of Amir Khan, of course. And it's difficult to predict because, like we said, we've all got our opinion as to who would have won if they fought in their prime. But this one is difficult to measure because these two are not in their prime and they've both been inactive. So it's kind of like, where'd you go?
Listen, man, when the fight was first announced and you asked me about it and they had that first press conference, I said to you unequivocally that I was leaning towards Khan. And up until about a week or so ago, I was still of that mindset. But I must admit, I am starting, the more I see Kell in training and seeing him and assessing him and stuff like that, I'm you know what, I'm going to change my mind, you know. I'm going to change my mind. Yeah, I'm going to change my mind. And I think it's interesting that the bookies have got him as a favorite now. I'm not sure that they would have had him as a betting favorite when the fight was announced either. So maybe there's the same kind of things. Yeah, Kell-Brook is actually the favorite for this fight.
Yep.
You know what? It's such a, you could make so many different scenarios for either man winning. You know what I mean? What I think at the moment, as of today, my thoughts are these. I see Amir Khan starting fast, establishing the jab, being the quicker of the two, being the quicker to the punch. And I think he's going to build up an early lead. Now, if Kell's eyes can withstand it, because let's face it, he's marking up a lot these days, especially after the 2 eye surgeries. If he can stay in the fight, when I say stay in the fight, I don't mean just like you're getting thrashed and you're still in the fight. I mean, he's got to be in there, landing his shots here and there, going to the body, doing his thing. If he's still there after about 6-7 rounds, man, then I think the tide is going to change, because I think that Kell is definitely the more stronger, the more robust. He has a better chin. And I think that down the stretch, man, he's going to start landing on Khan, and I think that might be the difference. But again, it's so close, bro. That's why I'm looking forward to this fight so much, because I've genuinely, if somebody said to me, here's a sum of money, you know what I mean, I want you to bet on it, and so I guess I would go for Brook, but I wouldn't do so with any real confidence.
Yeah, IB, we'll touch on that as well, about your boy Ryan Garcia splitting up with Eddie Reynoso. We'll touch on that. But yeah, I'm just thinking, man, those early rounds, it's just made for Khan. I know Brook can start quite quick as well. I thought that he started okay against Terence Crawford, to be fair. Terence Crawford, to be fair, wasn't doing a lot, but Brook started okay. Let's not forget, up until that 4th round, a few people were like, "Rah, man, Brook's doing all right."
He did, and then you know what would change the course of that fight is when he got hit on the eye socket. You could see him visibly.
Yeah, and Khan is somebody that Khan is someone that can start blisteringly fast. He's got superb combinations. He's going to be someone that will fire them. Do you know what I mean? And I just think that if he can sustain a period of dominance over those early rounds, man, maybe Brook might not be able to come back from it, because we don't know what he's got left. We don't know what he's got left. And even when they were due to fight in their prime, I always said to myself, even though I was backing Brook to win, I knew that the early rounds would be a bit long for him, because I could see Khan building up a lead. And will Brook be able to recover from that now? That's what I'm saying, because I still think Khan will start off fast. And he's got Crawford in the corner. That means a lot to me. I know it don't mean a lot to some people, but Crawford's been in there with Brook. You know, he could share his experience, what it was like in there with him. He could say, look, Brook might try and do this. And, you know, that was a good move from Khan to bring in Bomac, in my opinion. And Crawford.
Yeah, on the face of it, although we won't truly know until they fight. But yeah,
I could be wrong. But on the surface, it looks like a good move.
I mean, like I said before, Khan is a hella quick starter. He's probably got, if not the fastest hands in the game, one of the fastest. Him and Gary Russell Jr. stand out for me in terms of hand speed. And I just think that hand speed and movement, although his movement is not as good, obviously, as it was when he was in his early and mid-20s, but I think he's still got enough foot speed to take him out of trouble for the most part in the early rounds. What I'm saying is, if Kell, obviously we don't know what his game plan is, but I would imagine that Dominic Ingle's going to say, just stay in the fight, because we know that Amir Khan's going to start fast. He's probably going to win the early rounds just on work rate and speed and that alone.
And this is what I'm saying about the emotions, but carry on.
Right. So what I would be saying, you've got to, if you're fighting a fighter like Amir Khan, you've got to prepare for losing those early rounds. It's a 12-round fight. So you've got time. So don't become too despondent and get over anxious if you're 2-3 rounds down by the halfway mark, because you've got to be looking at rounds 6 to 12 as Kell Brook's time to assert himself on the fight. And if he can do that, I think he can wear Khan down, hurt him, and maybe take him out late.
But here's another issue. With the weight. You're saying drag him out till the later rounds, but how fresh will Brook be? Because he's clearly, Khan's strategy is clearly, Khan is trying to get a lot of things in his favor here, and he, as the A side, he's done that. Whereas he's brought the weight. I think it's 149 now, to be fair. But will the weight affect Kell? We've always said that.
What I would say about the weight is this. What I would say about the weight is this. I think that Kell would probably have preferred that fight in the early 150s. But you know what? 149 is going to be a hell of a lot better for 147. Anybody that's had to make weight for fights, as I did even when I was an amateur, know that those last couple of pounds can be hell to get off. So that 149, if he's done the weight cut properly, he should be able to do that, because he did it for Crawford.
What about the rehydration clause? There wasn't a rehydration clause in that Crawford fight.
Yeah. But like I said, it depends on how they do the weight cut. I mean, the weight cut will have to take that into consideration. But if they can get that weight cut right, and I was listening to Dominic Ingle about that, they reckon that they'll be spot on. Then that will also could advantage Kell Brook. Because let's face it, man, Amir Khan's done a lot of talking about he would have preferred the fight at 147.
You know Mohammed says here, Laurie predicting Kell Brook to win gives me confidence that Amir Khan will win. DS has said here, Team Brook. Mr. Moody has said here, Team Popper Khan. Stefan has said here, on a random note, I've been contradicting myself all day and I never realized why. Then someone pointed out that I had 3 cans of Ferocity, which is Tyson Fury's new energy drink. And he's saying, drink that with caution. So I don't know if you've tried that energy drink, Laurie, Tyson Fury's new energy drink. But Stefan said,
you know what I reckon? I reckon after this fight, Dominic Ingle should bring out one of his own drinks. I think that would put Ferocity out of business real quick, especially if Kell wins. Can you imagine that? I could see Dominic doing that kind of thing as well, bringing out his own water.
Yeah, that'll be funny.
You know what I mean? But hey, man, listen, man, it's I'm not making my prediction with any confidence. I have actually got my last couple of predictions right, actually, with the Eubank Williams and 1 or 2 others. But listen, man, I am. Maybe I'm saying this as well. I'm going to put my cards on the table. I'd like to see Kell win tomorrow, to be honest.
Yeah?
Yeah, I would.
Why?
I mean, because I don't know, there's something, even though Kell has sort of engineered his own downfall at times, he's an honest type of guy in terms of, you know, I mean, what you see is what you get with him, innit? I think sometimes Amir, like I said earlier in the show, he's got this overinflated opinion of himself that can kind of.
But don't all boxers feel that way? Don't all boxers have an ego?
Yeah, they do. But I think it's just the way sometimes how it manifests with Khan. You know what I mean? Sometimes he comes across, I have to say it, man, he's a bit delusional. I have to say that.
Yeah, well, Khan has done a lot of good things outside the ring as well.
Yeah, yes, yeah. Listen, man, I mean, I'm not really going to get upset. May the best man win, but I'm kind of leaning towards Kell Brook. And if he did win, I would be happy for him. I'm going to say that.
Josh Taylor predicting that Brook.
It would be a kind of karma for him, wouldn't it? For him to have felt so disrespected over the years that you actually end up by knocking the guy or beating the guy that for all these years you felt has looked down his nose at you, made a lot of very sort of dodgy comments in the press over the years. and then you get your revenge in him by knocking him out in the biggest grudge match that have taken place in this country for many years. That would be the perfect storm for Kell-Brook.
Listen, I think that there's every chance that Kell-Brook could win. It's really tough to predict. It is 50-50. But like I said, the emotions concern me, because another thing he said in the first press conference, he said, and I thought this was a bit, I don't know, I didn't agree with it anyway. But he said something along the lines of, this fight here with Khan, nothing else in my career matters. All I care about is beating him. I don't care about anything else I've done. I'm just like, you've won a world title. Do you know what I mean? Away in America against a top fighter like Sean Porter. You've had big fights in the past, and you fought in your home stadium. Do you know what I mean? And all you care about, like, are you working yourself up a bit too much for this Khan fight? Is Khan playing on your emotions? Are you going in there a bit too emotional? Like you said, what if he is 3 rounds down and Khan is putting his hand up to the crowd, and you got the crowd chanting for Khan, and like, what are you going to be like then? I'm just a bit concerned about all of this emotion aspect with Brook. Mate, he's a professional. He's been in the game for a long time. I'm sure he'll know how to check it, but I just think that there's a lot of burning anger in there for Kell-Brook, man. I don't know how it will affect him.
Yeah, it's a decent point you raised, but I would say, I mean, it's funny because in the lead up to fights, we're always talking about mind games this, mind games that. I'm not sure at that level where it really makes that much difference. I really don't. I think it's probably down to game plans, and it's about crucial moments in a fight. You know what I mean? There is going to be ebb and flow in this fight, I believe, because what I believe is that Khan will win the early rounds, although I'll be interested to see by how much he wins those early rounds. If he wins those rounds going away, you know that Kell's in trouble. If he wins those rounds, but you're feeling to yourself, you know what, Kell's still touching him up in there, man. You know what I mean? He's still in there. He's hurt him a couple of times, or he's made him respect his power. Then I'm going to start leaning towards Kell for sure, because I definitely believe that Kell is the stronger, more robust guy with a better chin. Definitely got a better chin than Khan. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of intangibles in there, man. It wouldn't surprise me either guy win, but I'm ever so slightly leaning towards Kell-Brook at this present moment in time. I think it might be an even better indicator when they go on the scales on Friday. If Kell goes on the scales and he looks a bit drawn and a bit quiet and a little bit rushing to get that fluid down his throat, I'll be thinking, oh, hang on, he's a bit drained there. But if he comes on those scales, man, and he looks good, he looks big, because he's the bigger man without a doubt, and he looks strong and muscled and rearing to go, and you can see he's got that glow about him and that energy in his body and stuff. Yeah, I'll be thinking, yeah, man, they did the weight cut right. It's game on.
Listen, I'll agree. DS has said he agrees with you here. Conrad has said you're spot on. Mr. Moody is saying here, skill for skill, Brook. Variables, i.e. wear and tear. Dominic Waven fights when Brook takes a knee. Brook being a front runner plus emotional. I have Team Khan on this one, boys. Francisco has said here, on the gloves are off. Brook said something to the effect, if he had lost to Khan, he would walk with it. Yeah, this is what I'm saying, man. Is it too much? I don't know. But look.
I think that could be just to sell the fight, I really do. Because over the years, I've never really seen Kell-Brook as an over-emotional type of guy. Have you? He comes across as quite cold sometimes, actually.
Yeah, he has.
Sense of humor. I've never really seen him go in there and flailing his hands like a madman, or, rushing things. And he's always seemed quite composed and quite, intelligent in the ring, to be honest. I think his problems have been outside the ring. So I'm not so sure about this mind game stuff. I think it's good talking points to sell the fight, but I'm not sure. On the other hand, I've seen Khan do that. Over the years, I've seen him like lose it in the ring when times when he's been hurt and he should have held and boxed his way around the ring. He's there looking to engage, and then he gets caught and dropped. You know what I mean? I've seen that a few times with him. Yeah. You know what I mean? Where we can overcommit with his punches and get too excited, because that's the type of fast twitch energy in which he fights. Whereas Kell is a lot more, how can I put it? It's a lot more measured is the word I'm looking for. The way he attacks his game plan. Whereas Khan will flail, and stuff like that. So Yeah,
Listen,
man. And game plans, let's face it, man, are going to be very important tomorrow because both these guys are not, despite what they're saying about how fantastic they feel and rare, I've never felt better. Let's be honest, man. Father Time catches up with everyone, and it's obvious. You've only got to watch these guys' last couple of fights. They're not at the levels they were even 5-6 years ago, either of them. So that's another thing. Game plans. So Bomac and Ingle, the respective game plans that they're able to get together is going to be important in this fight. You know what I mean?
Let me say this. I think just for my prediction on this, I think that it's very difficult to predict. Like I said, both of these guys are not in their prime. If they were to meet in their prime, I would have favored Brook. Always did favor him over Khan. I just thought that he had the timing to beat that speed that Khan presented, and Khan at some point would always get caught. And I think that Brook would have been one to catch him at some point and finish him off. As we come to tomorrow, Saturday night, and obviously both of these guys are not in their prime, it's a lot more even. Brook has suffered some devastating defeats along the way, broken eye sockets in both eyes. He's been stopped by Terence Crawford. And I just think that with all of these, measures that Khan has put in place as well, with the weight rehydration clause, the fight taking place at 149 might help Kell a little bit, but the rehydration clause in particular, that is, I think, could be an issue. And not knowing how much Kell has left, coming off a devastating defeat. True say Khan has been out of the ring for 2.5 years. But I just feel with Crawford in the corner as well and Bomac, I like that addition. And I just feel that maybe I'm slightly edging Khan in this, man. I think that Khan might do it this time round. But like I said, if they fought in their prime, I would have went for Brook. But I just think now kind of suits Khan, especially with that clause. I think that's going to be an issue.
Well, I don't know how they're going to operate that clause thing. What I do know is that it's been said that if Kell does come over in terms of weight, then he said he'll happily pay the fine because he wants
£100,000.
Yeah. Apparently, he said it's on the record where he said that if I have to pay the fine, I'll pay the fine. My main motivator is to win the fight, and I do actually believe that. You know what I mean? The other thing I would say as well is that you spoke about speed, but as we all know in boxing, what beats speed? And that is timing. Now, let me take you back to one of Amir Khan's early losses. That is a real example of timing beating speed. If you remember, for the first 3 or 4 rounds, when he fought Danny Garcia, man, Amir Khan was winning that fight and winning it easily. He was outclassing Danny Garcia even. But I think there was a moment in that fight whereby you see Danny Garcia's dad tells him to throw when Amir Khan is throwing. Yeah. And he stayed in the pocket just that split second too long and he got caught. Now, the reason why I say that as well is that in boxing, they will always tell you to vary. If you're a fast-handed fighter, they will say that you don't want to fight the whole fight at the same speed. You should vary your speed. So in other words, what you do is you might throw a couple of really quick jabs and a right hand, but then the next time you mix it up with a slow jab. What you're doing there is you don't want to get the guy too used to your speed or become too predictable. So you do what they call vary your speed. Now, Amir Khan doesn't really prosecute his fights like that. He's very quick, but it's all boom, that level of speed. Yeah. Whereas that could make you easy to time because the person will think, right, I know what, even though he's quick, I know what to expect after a couple of rounds. So I'm going to time him. And we all know, anybody that watches Brook in his career, we know that he has good timing and he puts his punches together well. So that's another intangible there. So that's what I'm saying, man. There's so many intangibles in this fight.
It's going to be, it's difficult to predict this one. It really is. IB has said here, is there any chance of a watch along for Khan and Brook? Laurie, I'll let you answer that one.
Okay. There is a watch along that we're doing for DR Sports, and I was going to announce this later, but it seems like a great time to do that now. So yeah, myself and Daryl and 1 or 2 others, Robbie from AFTV. We've got another couple of guys that yet to be confirmed, but we're going to have a full sofa, as it were, full house. So join us, man, on DR Sports tomorrow. Watch out for the notifications, and I can't wait.
Yeah, head over to the Don Robbie channel, man. DR Sports, that's where it is. We'll be doing a watch along on that channel. I'm a bit disappointed because I wanted to do the fan talk on here. That went down really well for Eubank Williams. Maybe I'll try and do one the night before, maybe after the weigh-in, and just get the fans' opinion then, or we could do it after the fight, whichever suits you guys better. If you want to do one like the next day, we could do that, or maybe do it before the weigh-in, get people's final predictions for the fight then. Maybe, I don't know, we'll see. I'll see what people are saying.
I think both those times are good because, like I said, I think the weigh-in could be crucial in this fight. Like I said, especially as far as Kell-Brook's concerned.
You're right. It could do it both times, isn't it? Could do it both times. Really.
Like I said, if Kell looks good at the weigh-in, he doesn't look too drawn, and his energy levels look right, that will be a massive plus for him because that would have meant he's done the weight cut right. If he, on the other hand, looks lethargic and drawn, and he's not saying too much, and his body language looks a little bit down, then that's advantage Khan.
Yeah, but I've seen Kell look brilliant at weigh-ins. I saw him look great at the weigh-in against Errol Spence. We saw him fade late in that fight, but to be fair, that probably was down to Spence. And
no, but against with Spence, it's kind of hard to judge that. You're fighting, to me anyway, the pound-for-pound #1 fighter in the world.
Who, Spence?
Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking about Crawford.
Yeah, against Spence, he looked in great shape, but obviously Spence broke him down with body shots. So we've seen Brook look in great shape before. Do you know what I mean? So are you saying if he looks in great shape on Saturday, that will make you more confident in your pick?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think with a guy that's had issues with weight in the past, like 147, like I said, this is 149. So those 2 pounds could make a big difference, man. Trust me. May not sound a lot to the layman, but 2 pounds when you're struggling to make weight is a lot. Trust me. In the lead up to this fight, he's looked in good form, hasn't he? He looks well, you know what I mean? Apparently the training's gone really well. Sweating a lot, as Dominic will tell you. You know what I mean? So listen, man, it's all on the line. Could even be a rematch for this fight, because I think the one thing that we can predict is that this is going to be an entertaining fight.
There's no rematch clause, thankfully, I don't think.
Right. Yeah. I can see why there wouldn't be a rematch clause, but I can also see where if the fight, say, for example, we've got our predictions wrong, Darren, it does go the distance. And it does have the ebb and flow that we spoke about. It's a good fight. I'm sure there'll be a lot of people saying, yeah, you know what, let's do it again, man, because I enjoyed the first fight so much that they should do it a second time. Then it could easily happen.
Good comment here from IB. He said here, coming over the weight limit doesn't always work when you're doing it tactically. He said he remembers Danny Jacobs doing the same for Canelo, paying over $1 million in fines, but he still lost.
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, not doing the weight cut is an indicator that you've not got your training schedules and all that spot on. There's something that went slightly wrong there. So, like I said, I'll be watching that weigh-in the day before the fight with keen interest. And let's face it as well, man, they have got 24 hours to energize, well, over 24 hours to energize, rehydrate, you know what I mean? So, again, man, so much to look forward to.
Looks like I got this one out. There is a rematch clause. There's a rematch clause if Khan loses. Okay, so I got that wrong. But no rematch clause if Kell-Brook loses. Jay-Z said here, Kell said about a week ago that there is a rematch. So there is a rematch clause in there somewhere. So I got that one wrong. But yeah, there is a rematch clause for this one then. Not surprising. There's a rematch clause.
It wouldn't surprise me if at the end of this fight, there are calls for a rematch. But it would have to be justified, in my opinion, because you know, I'm not a big fan of rematch clauses. However, that's because I don't like when rematch hold up world titles. This is not about titles. This is about settling a personal grudge.
I haven't seen many people go for points wins. It's either been Khan KO or Brook KO. I ain't really seen anyone really say Brook on points or Khan on points. Have you seen a lot of them?
No, I haven't. No.
A lot of people just think it's going to end in a KO, this one.
I think if it does go to points, though, you would have thought that Amir Khan will be favoured, wouldn't he? For points.
He's the A side in this. Yeah. So
no, not just that. I just think his style of boxing is more suited for that. If it goes to points, I think he would have been deemed to have done more in the rounds to get the win on points. I think if it's going to be a late stoppage, that's Kell's territory. You know what I mean? But it could be one of them where Kell might drop some of the early rounds, but then, you know what I mean, start his assault on Khan and then pick up and progress and go on to win on a wide points decision. You never know.
Ain't no way this goes 12, Harvey says here. DS is just reiterating the point that there is a rematch clause in this one. Finally, before we move on, just quickly, just underline our predictions here before we move on here. I'm going to say Khan, and I'm not saying it with a lot of conviction, man, because it could really go either way. But if you're going to put a gun to my head, I'm going to say Khan, man. Maybe Khan, maybe 7 or 8. I don't know, man. Maybe that. But I'm not confident in that pick. I'm not. I could see Brook knocking him out too, but I'm going to say Khan. Sorry, that's really on the fence. That is, but it's hard to predict, man.
Well, that's the beauty of this fight. Like you said, it's so hard to predict. I mean, it was much easier to predict Eubank and Williams, even though that was a very well matched fight as well. This is why this fight is so intriguing. And I'm genuinely looking forward to it tomorrow. As I said, I'm genuinely excited for it. My tip is, like I said, initially, I was a bit like you, Amir Khan. However, I'm seeing enough of Brook to suggest that if he can get through the early rounds, it might be his night. He'll wear down and stop Amir Khan late, maybe around 10 or something like that. But yeah, I'm going for Kell-Brook.
Okay, man. There you have it. There you have it, man. Great. I'm loving all the comments as well. And there is an undercard here as well. Yeah, Vidal Riley, Fraser Clark will be in action, Natasha Jonas as well. So looking forward to that show. Looking forward to doing the watch along with you, Laurie, and on the DR Sports channel. I'll post the details for that on the day. And 2 more topics before we go. I want to get your opinion on. I know you're going to have a strong opinion on this one, which is the Kambosos situation, where it's looking like that he's now going to be facing Lomachenko instead of Devin Haney. Devin Haney came out today and said, look, whatever Loma is getting, you can give me that. So he's really pushing for that. And I rate him for that. Like, he's really trying to get this fight. But it's looking like Kambosos is going to head in the Loma direction. What's your thoughts on that, man? I'm a bit disappointed.
I'm disappointed in that, man. For number one, I don't think Lomachenko deserves that fight. I think that this was Kambosos fighting Haney was a chance to unify all the belts, no question. Because although Kambosos erroneously calls himself undisputed champion, he's not, because Devin Haney has a belt. Now, some people out there are going to say it's email belt, whatever. Listen, he's got a belt. To be fair to Haney, he said he wants to fight to unify all the belts. He said he's prepared to go to Australia. I believe him. For whatever reason, these negotiations are broken down. Somehow Loma has found himself at the front of the queue. Like I said, I don't believe he deserves that fight. But it looks like he's going to get it, man. I'm disappointed, man. I think Devin Haney's a young star who deserved a chance to unify the belts. It was clear to me that Lomachenko did not want to fight Haney when he had the belts. So I don't know what's going to happen if Lomachenko wins. Yeah, man, I'm disappointed. Although, listen, Kambosos, Lomachenko, especially in Australia, will be a good fight. I hope Kambosos wins so that they can set up with a fight with Haney after. But with boxing and the way it goes and the politics, who knows what's going to happen.
Pen Yong is saying here, Lomachenko is a way harder fight than the Devin Haney one.
Why? Why is that? Explain. Explain. Why is that? If Lomachenko was a way harder fight than Haney, then why didn't Kambosos take the easy money then?
Yeah, I mean,
if Haney's such an easy night's work, then why didn't Lomachenko fight Haney rather than accept a franchise belt, which messed up this whole division in the first place? So that's not true at all. Listen, stars make fights. Haney, with his length and his boxing style, would have given Kambosos a world of problems, and his youthful energy and all the rest of it. You know, I mean, he's not the biggest puncher, but he's probably the most skilled in that division. Okay, maybe not all-round skills that Loma possesses, but the problems that he will give Kambosos will be just as much, if not more, than what Lomachenko. Let's face it, Lomachenko's aging as a lightweight as well. So, you know what? It is
Conrad
what it
is
is,
saying
man.
here.
I'm disappointed because I wanted to see Kambosos fight Haney and unify all the belts.
Conrad is saying here Kambosos is clearly selling out to the highest bidder. And he says that Loma destroys Kambosos. And he said Haney will probably get a wider decision. Mohammed says here, I agree that Loma is a harder fight than Haney. Davek Penyong is saying here, Loma beats Haney easily.
So why didn't he fight him then? You know what I mean? Like, it's very easy for some people to sit back and say, because I think they've been watching too many of those tennis ball drills, man. You know what I mean?
Lomachenko had the chance to fight Haney. He did.
Yeah, and he didn't want it. It was clear that he did not want that fight. So if Haney was such an easy win for him, why didn't he fight him?
I think people are kind of disrespected. Haney's a lot better.
Exactly.
Just because he got hurt against what's his name, Linares. I think a lot of people are underestimating Haney, but they call him email champion. They say all of this stuff, but why is none of these guys fighting him then? What more does the guy have to do?
Like Haney said himself, all these guys say everything about me except let's fight. And let's be honest as well. When he fought Linares, who still had juice at that time, let's be honest, man. Apart from that 10th round, man, Haney won easily. And even when he fought Jojo in that last fight, yes, he had a few uncomfortable moments, but for the most part, he won a wide decision. So he's definitely a world-class fighter, a young guy who's calling out all those guys, but none of them seem to want to fight him. What are they so scared for? The guy's not a big puncher. Fight him. You know what I mean? Disabuse him of that notion that he's the best, because he feels he's the best and he's not shy in saying that. So those guys should disabuse him of that notion that he is the best. So if Loma considered Haney an easy fight, my question to those people was, why did he so studiously avoid Haney to the point where he's taking a franchise belt?
The thing is, Big Lou is saying here, Loma. I think Loma beats Kambosos anyway. If I'm being honest,
I wouldn't say that.
I think Loma beats him.
Why?
I just think Loma's still got enough juice left to beat him, man.
That's the same thing. That's the same attitude that Teofimo said, isn't it? And look what happened to him.
Styles make fights. I just think that Kambosos, he's not going to fight. I think Loma beats Kambosos, man.
Yeah, I think he would start as a favorite, but it wouldn't surprise me if Kambosos' youthful energy and enthusiasm and the fact that he'll be fighting in front of his home people, I think he's definitely got a shout.
I don't think he's got enough power to keep Loma honest like Teofimo did. I don't think he's got that sort of power to keep Loma away from him like Teo did at the time. I just think
is this prime Loma though? Is this prime Loma? I mean, okay, a lot of people got carried away or got very excited in that first fight against Nakatani, but against Comey, I thought there was a lot of people blowing smoke, man. I didn't think it was a great performance. I thought he was clearly the better fighter against Comey, but come on now, let's be honest. Could you see Comey beating Haney? Could you see Comey beating Kambosos? No. So just because he's beaten like Richard Comey, people are now saying, yeah, Loma's back. Well, I'm not convinced about that yet. You remember when he fought?
If he fights like he did against Nakatani,
he throw a punch for 6 rounds.
If he fights like he did against Nakatani, man, boy, I mean,
but again, styles make fights. I expect Kambosos to be a wholly different proposition than Nakatani is.
Yeah, I don't want to underestimate Kambosos either, man. But I predict Loma will beat him.
It's the fact that let me ask you this. Is the fact that Kambosos readily took on Loma, are they seeing something in him? Is word on the street that Loma slowed down a bit? Because he's not a big lightweight, is he? He's not a big puncher at the weight. Maybe Kambosos thinks he can out-hustle him. He can outwork him over 12 rounds.
Yeah. Jay-Z has said here, there's far too much gassing in the lightweight division. I agree. It's almost as bad as the middleweight division. Injury-free Loma, in my opinion, is the top dog. If it hasn't been spoken about already, is Joe Smith tough enough to last 12 with Beterbiev? Probably not. And he is tough, but it's just Beterbiev for me.
Yeah, I mean, I would make Beterbiev favorite against any of the light heavyweights, but Joe Smith will give him a good fight, I think, because Joe Smith will go in and let his hands go. I mean, I said in Joe Smith's last fight, one thing that was clearly impressive about him is that his work rate and the amount of punches he throws. So that might help. I mean, Beterbiev is getting on in years, man. You know what I mean? There is going to get that one day when, you know what I mean, it's just not happening for him in there. But I would definitely make Beterbiev favorite.
Francisco says Loma versus Cambo is good, but they're all ducking Haney. Loma beats Kambosos. Haney is very talented, but I don't see why these guys are so scared of him. I'd favor Haney, but they would be competitive fights. IB has said here, perhaps we should give Kambosos credit for taking the harder fight instead of saying, why didn't he take the easier fight?
Well, but why is it the harder fight? I don't get that when people say that. You don't know, not you, Daryl. 1B or IB. Why is he the harder fight? Just because he has a better name or the better resume? Haney is a young, strong, ever improving fighter. You know what I mean? With great athleticism, great jab, great boxing skills. You know what I mean? He believes in himself. He's more at his peak than Loma is. You know what I mean? So I don't think you can necessarily say that you should give Kambosos the credit for taking a harder fight. You could easily switch it around and saying that he's taking the easier fight, because if he loses to Loma, let's face it, no one's expecting him to lose to Loma. No one's expecting him to beat, or very few people outside his own country are expecting Kambosos to beat Loma. So if he loses to Loma, he can say, oh, I've lost to one of the pound for pound all-time greats. Whereas if he lost to Haney, with Haney still not being proven at that top level, it might be seen by some people as more of a disappointment. So it depends which way you want to look at it. Stars make fights.
So I just think, look, man, you've got the chance to settle this ongoing debate about all the belts in the division after the fight, after Haney beat what's his name? I forgot his name. Who did he just fought? Jojo. Yeah, after he just beat Jojo. You know, they had Kambosos there. They were both talking in the interview. It looked like that fight was next. Undisputed. Like, what? This is what I wanted to see. Yeah, the Loma fight is a good fight, man. But how was he just jumped ahead of Haney like that in the queue?
That makes no sense.
And a lot of people here are kind of capping for Loma. I don't get it.
Yeah, like, because you know what it is, Joe? They're taking him by names. They're seeing Loma, you know what I mean, with his fantastic array of skills, and he's throwing up these tennis balls and everyone's getting excited, you know what I mean? But he lost comprehensively to Teofimo, right? Yes,
why did he drop the queue?
He got a great performance against Nakatani where he did look good. Absolutely, he did. But in the following fight with Comey, he fought in spurts in that fight. I didn't think overall it was a great performance. Again, a lot of people were gassing him up because it's Loma. You know what I mean? I was more impressed with Haney beating Jojo than I was with Loma beating Comey. You know what I mean? And Loma in that fight as well was doing some naughty stuff, man, like telling the referee to stop the fight because he wasn't capable of getting Comey out of there. Him beating Richard Comey for me was not no massive deal, bro. I was much more impressed with the way that Haney beat Jojo Diaz, who's a young guy in his prime, former world title holder. You know what I mean? And he did a good job on him, I thought. Won pretty much most of the rounds, if not all of the rounds. And it was also telling that after the fight, Jojo Diaz was very quick to give Devin Haney credit and say he's a lot better than I thought he was. And I think that's a big clue in there. That yes, he may not look sensational, Devin Haney, but he's obviously going to be very hard to beat at this stage in his career. And I think Kambosos may have looked at that and thought, you know what? If in the event I lose, I'd rather lose to Loma because he's got a bigger name. And I think that's what it is. He's fighting the name and not the guy. Wizard
Sleeve, how is Devin Haney supposed to fight anybody if nobody chooses to fight? He's trying to fight everyone.
This guy's been ridiculous. With respect, Wizard Sleeve, what are you talking about? His last two fights, he's beaten Linares, who a lot of people rated very... Linares gave Lomachenko one of his hardest fights. And Devin Haney wiped the floor with Linares, apart from one round. Don't forget, Linares had Lomachenko on the floor. I don't see nobody saying anything about that. Yeah? Right? And then in the fight after that, he took on and again comprehensively beat another ex-champion, Jojo Diaz, who's in his prime. And he beat him comfortably. So how can this guy, Wizard Sleeve, say...
Hey, I don't know what you're talking about, Wizard Sleeve.
Nobody.
Wizard, you've obviously got something against Haney.
People just repeating stuff that they've heard one or two other people say.
What are you on about,
Clearly not
Wizard
been
Sleep? I
following
don't
the
know what
guy's
you're on about.
career.
Don't know what you're on about, Wizard
Yeah,
Sleep.
what
Man.
are you talking about? You know what I mean? The guy's beaten Linares and Jojo Diaz in his last 2 fights, and he's beaten them comprehensively, both of those two. What are you on about?
This is the issue. This is why, I mean, because this is in people's heads,
Exactly.
like they think that I don't get it.
They're
You've got
listening
the
to
chance
too
to be
much Dan
undisputed.
Rafael. That's what it is. Listen, we know Loma's a great fighter, but Loma, with respect, he's in the twilight years of his career. That's why he's desperate to get this fight, because he realizes that Kambosos is not at the level of some of the other champions, and he may not get another opportunity. Because, like I said, if Haney was easy work, why did Loma refuse to fight him? Why did he take a franchise belt rather than fight Devin Haney? All of those guys were calling him out, weren't they? Teofimo was calling him out. Haney was calling him out. Tank wasn't calling him out, but you know what I mean? A lot of guys were calling him out. He went down the Teofimo road. Why did he do that? Why did he not take Haney on? Did he see something in Haney that he thinks, you know what? That style might not work for me.
Ryan Garcia, another one, someone that won an eliminator to fight against Haney, and then he chose not to take it. Is this Haney's fault?
He actually said, I'm not ready for that fight yet.
Is all of this stuff Haney's fault?
Saying to these guys, man, styles, watch boxing. Don't just watch the name. Styles make fights. Just because you can beat A doesn't mean you'll beat B and C. Different fighters, different strengths, different attributes.
I have to say, man, I'm riding for Haney. I want Haney to get the shot, man, because I'm just seeing he gets a lot of hate online. Yeah. And he, to me, seems like somebody that wants to smoke with everyone. You don't really see that with a lot of fighters today. But Haney wants it, and a lot of these guys don't want it. So I'm rooting for him to get his flowers, man.
Yeah, you're so right there, Darryl, because you see a lot of these younger guys, especially, they're on social media calling people out, insulting them, saying they, I'll do this to you, I'll do that to you. And then the fights never get made because they've either got injuries or mental illnesses or whatever. You get a guy like Haney who's calling everyone out, means it, wants to fight people, and for some reason, those guys won't step up to the plate and fight him. And then you still got people out there saying, oh, it's an easy fight. Why? What, just because the guy he's not a knockout puncher? Is that what you're saying? So
yeah. Sander B here says Styles make fights and Loma's style beats both Haney and Kambosos. I think he does beat Kambosos. He could beat Haney too. Do you know what I mean? But I just want to see it. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. And I wouldn't sleep on Kambosos, you know, seriously, because the guy's got serious energy and he's got serious belief. He's on top of the world right now, and he's fighting in his home country. We all know what happened to Manny Pacquiao when he fought Jeff Horn in Australia. You know what I mean? And unlike a lot of other people who like to swing that narrative, I thought Jeff Horn deserved that win. You know what I mean? And that was Jeff Horn fighting in his own country in front of his own people. They obviously lifted him to certain levels where he was able to win the fight. So do not be shocked if Kambosos out-hustles Loma and wins that maybe 7-5 or 8-4 or something like that. Do not be surprised, because I've noticed Lomachenko does not fight 3 minutes around. He's not that guy that he was 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. You know what I mean?
I've got utmost respect for
Loma,
man.
unbeatable.
But like, I got utmost respect for his accomplishments, his career, and everything else. And if he does get the fight, like I said, I would have him as the favorite over Kambosos for me. But yeah, I prefer to see the Haney fight, in my opinion.
It doesn't look like it's going to happen. But like I said, don't sleep on Kambosos.
Yeah,
because he done it and who knows, he might be able to do it again.
Davik Penyong has said here, why is it okay for Laurie when Haney? Davik, big up to Davik Penyong, man. He's out here today. He said, why is it okay for Laurie when Haney outpoints his opponents, but it's not okay when Bivol does it?
Because Bivol, with respect, does it Davik?
Let's call him Dave, yeah.
You're barking up the wrong tree. The point I was trying to make about Haney is he's got 2 very good opponents on his resume, yeah? Now, with respect to Craig Richards, and I like Craig, you know what I mean? I've met him before. You cannot possibly compare Craig Richards, bro, to Jorge Linares and Jojo Diaz. You just can't. You just can't, bro. And the other guy that Bivol fought, come on now. I don't even Was it Salamov or something like that?
Yeah.
A totally obscure guy. You're going to compare those opponents with Devin Haney? Have a word with yourself, Davick, man. Come on.
He said Joe Smith Jr. What about Joe Smith Jr.? No, he fought very well against him.
With respect, we're talking about his last couple of opponents. I'm saying that Bivol's not that guy. Yes, he has good wins in his career. Of course he does. I'm saying at the moment he's not that guy. So Canelo should not be looking to fight him over Charlo and Benavidez. That's what I'm saying. So I hope I made that clear. I think I have. I think you understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah. Big up Dave, man. I like the questions, man. He's not having it.
I think I've answered that.
Yeah, you've answered that. You've answered it.
If you're going to listen, if you're going to compare Craig Richards and Salamov versus Linares and Jojo Diaz, then I think you have an issue, bro. Maybe you don't want to admit it, but you're hating on Devin Haney.
Mohammed says here, where'd you have Cambo? Well, you've got to have him at number one. Do you know what I mean? Because I don't mean I think he beats everyone, but he is number one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I agree. He's got to be number one. He's got the majority of the belts. He's coming off a great win. But that doesn't mean to say he's the best in the division. He has to prove it. And to me, if he beats Loma, he has not proved that he's the number one in the division. He hasn't. Because to me, he should have been looking to unify the belts. Like what Terence Crawford did. Like what Canelo did. Although with Canelo, it was a very strategic unification. But anyway. But you know what I'm saying, yeah?
This news can't be true here about IB. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if it is. But,
listen, man.
Yeah. Last one here before we move. Last comment here before we move on to our last topic of the day. IB has said here, maybe Kambosos wants the Haney fight to build up a little. A win versus Loma makes Haney fight even bigger and more money. I'm Team Haney all the way, but it's not fair to criticize him taking the Loma fight if it's Haney next. Fair enough.
Listen, man, if Haney's definitely next. But the reason why I was so disappointed, because after that fight that he fought so well against Tio, right, and won the fight, all the talk was that it was going to be a unification with Devin Haney. And you know us on this show, IB, is that we like unification fights, even over mandatories. We like unification fights. So I was greatly encouraged when I heard Kambosos saying that, listen, man, I'll unify with you. We've got to do it in Australia, though. And Devin Haney was like, yeah, man, we can do it in Australia. You know what I mean? Now, to me, I think Devin Haney's been genuine when he said he wanted to go to Australia. He deserves this opportunity. Loma's had his several opportunities in the past, and I just think he's jumped the queue. Now, listen, you lot, you want Loma to fight, you're fascinated with the name, you like all the tennis ball action and all the other stuff and high-tech, rare. You've got your wish. But for me, I would have preferred to see the belts unified. I like Devin Haney. I like what he stands for. He's talking that stuff, but he looks like he's more than prepared to back it up. Give him his opportunity. Allow him to be that star that he tells everyone he wants to be. It's as simple as that, really.
Last one before we go, man. Just a quick question, and that's on Deontay Wilder. I'm not sure if you saw him in the lab the other day on his Instagram post, but he might be turning his attention to music. Then I saw another article about Deontay Wilder, and apparently he's going to take some spiritual journey to see if he's going to fight again. Where does Deontay Wilder stand in his career right now? Would you like to see? Do you think he will fight again, and would you like to see that? Like, what's your thoughts on all of this?
Right, listen, I'm going to declare an interest there. You all know I'm a big fan of Deontay Wilder. However, I think he's had 3 very, very difficult fights back to back. The last 2, which he was comprehensively beaten, knocked out face first that last fight. And the fight before that, he took a pretty bad beating. Personally, I would like to see Deontay Wilder retire because I don't think he's going to hit those levels again. Certainly while Furies and all those guys are still around. However, I do know how this sport tends to work. Fighters don't like to go out on a loss, especially a bad loss like he's had, especially back-to-back bad losses. So I can see why he might come back and fight again. I would prefer if he didn't, to be honest. He's made a lot of money. He's achieved everything he's going to achieve in the game. He's not going to win any titles from here on in. But if he is going to fight again, I think it has to be a very carefully selected opponent, because if they get it even slightly wrong, I could see him getting knocked out again. Real talk.
Davik Penyong has said here, Laurie, do you like Josh Taylor?
I like Josh Taylor a lot. Didn't used to, didn't you? Didn't always. He's a bit spiky, a bit sort of confrontational, and says some pretty harebrained things at times, especially early on in his career. But he's definitely one of the better fighters out there, not just in British boxing, but in world boxing. So yeah, I do like him. Yeah, definitely. And I'm looking forward to his fight against Jack Catterall. I think it's going to be pretty much easy work for Josh Taylor. And the only way Jack Catterall's got any chance in this fight is if Josh Taylor doesn't take him seriously. That's the only. I'm not, with no disrespect to Jack Catterall, who's a decent fighter, but you know, this is about levels, bro. And Josh Taylor is levels above Jack Catterall. And I say that without any unequivocation. Levels above.
Michael Maxwell said here, Wilder will only fight again if it's for undisputed, and if Fury is not the champion. It'd be difficult for him to jump that queue. But yeah, that's looking like, if that's the case, it's unlikely he'll fight again.
I hope he doesn't just come back and go in there and think that he's going to beat like a lot of the top guys, because that's not going to happen, man. I think, especially for his first fight back after the Fury.
I was just going to ask you, who's the ideal first fight back for Wilder?
Again, that is a good question, actually, because you can't go too far down the totem pole because there'll be no interest. You know what I mean? So it's got to
Charles Martin fight. If he fought Charles Martin before he fought Ortiz, then that would have been all right for me.
Yeah, if it had been before. The trouble with picking Charles Martin as an opponent, it's going to be considered a soft touch, isn't it? Because Charles Martin's coming off of that knockout loss against.
Yeah, it would have had to have been before the Luis Ortiz. I don't know now. They're talking about Chisora, there's no serious talks about that, but I've heard people mention it.
Maybe he could fight someone like Trevor Bryan, who holds that dubious belt. So then, I don't know. But I do know they need to be very careful. For a start, they can't put him in with a big puncher.
But Joe Parker.
That would be suicide. I don't think that's a good fight for him, actually. I can see Joseph Parker beating. I really can.
Mohammed says here, does Wilder beat
Usyk? That a couple of years ago.
Does Wilder beat Usyk? Mohammed says if he lands that right hand, he could knock him out.
I can't see him beating Usyk. Not at this stage. Maybe a couple of years ago, I would have favoured him to beat Usyk, but not right now. I think there are some serious issues with Wilder. You saw in that third fight with Fury, after 2 rounds, man, Wilder's legs were completely shot. Yeah. And anybody who watches boxing knows that once your legs have gone like that, you're going down a dangerous road. The legs were completely gone down. He got through that fight on heart and bravery, courage, and belief in his power. That's what got him through so late against Fury.
Maybe Fury, according to Michael Maxwell, could fight Wilder. That's not a bad fight, actually.
No, it's not. I honestly think that any half-decent fighter at heavyweight will now represent a serious risk for Wilder. Shall I tell you why as well? Because even when Wilder was in his pomp and he was knocking guys out, he was never the best boxer then. You know what I mean? So fast forward to now, where those physical attributes are not there anymore in terms of the legs and stamina and stuff like that. So what are you going to expect him to turn into this master boxer at this advanced age in his career? He's never going to be that. He's always going to be a fighter of limited skills that relies on his power and his heart. The problem now is that he's taken a couple of beatings, man, and you know what I mean? You could see it going wrong for him, man. I don't want to see him be like a stepping stone for younger guys who just want Wilder's name on their resume. I think that would be a bad way for him to go out of sport.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see what happens, man. Like I said, Wilder's looking like he's going on he's taking some time out to decide what he wants to do. He is in his mid-30s. He's about 36 years old, I think, now. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see what
he does. And an old 36 as well, let's be honest.
Yeah, the Fury fights definitely aged him. Yeah,
and even you talk about the Fury fights. What about the 2 Ortiz fights? They were wars as well.
Yeah.
I mean, he's had a few fights when he's had to go late into the fights to get that knockout. You know what I mean? And all that wear and tear and punishment is building up. That's why in that last fight against Fury, we was all shocked, weren't we? how bad his legs looked. Oh, and this was after about round 2 or 3,
two,
wasn't it?
3. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are real telltale signs, Daryl. Trust me. The legs are the first things to go on a fighter.
Yeah.
First things to go. And his legs looked totally shot in that fight. I was actually surprised at how bad they were. Especially
how long he lasted.
Such a great camp.
Surprised how long he lasted, to be fair, man.
Yeah, well, it was bravery and courage and belief in his power that was keeping him in there, sheer will, which is why I gave him so much credit. But that being said, I think he needs to have a close look at his career, man, and maybe just call it a day. Because like I said, how much more money does he want? Is money more important than your long-term health? He's not going to win any titles again, unfortunately, for Wilder. I really don't think so. Unless, of course, he fights someone like Trevor Bryan and wins a dubious world title. What was it, WBF or something? I don't know. But, you know, and even then, if he goes and fights Trevor Bryan and beats him, a lot of people are going to say, well, so what, aren't they? That's the thing about a fight like that. People are going to say, who's that?
Last one here before we go. Well, we've got 2 questions here quickly. Who do you think will win if Chisora and Ortiz fight? I heard that was in discussions. I don't mind that fight at all.
I don't mind that fight, but I would lean towards
Ortiz.
Yeah,
I'll go for Ortiz.
Eric is another one that needs to be seriously considering boxing again, man. I think slightly different for Derek though, because he's a bit more sturdy than Deontay. He can take punishment a bit better, but then that in itself is a problem, isn't it? But because he can take this punishment, he keeps going in there and getting punished. You know what I mean? So. And listen, man, these things have a habit of catching up with you later on in life. So I'd like to see Derek retire as well. But he's already said he's not going to retire. So, hey.
Michael Maxwell says here, last one, Laurie, do you think Wilder will beat AJ?
Not this version of Wilder, no. I think AJ would knock him out in less than 6 rounds.
Well, we'll wrap it up there, man. Listen, it's been a great show today. Had a great preview for Khan-Brook this weekend, man. Cannot wait. Don't forget, we will be on the Don Robbie Sports channel on Saturday night doing the watch along. Go check out that watch along on that channel. I'll be doing some more videos up until the fight, the weigh-in. I'll be doing a video after that. And I'll also do a video the day after as well. We'll jump on and we'll have a catch up on the fight as well. But big up to everybody in the comment section. First of all, man, don't forget to hit the like button on the way out. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And we're nearing that 1K mark. So shout out to everyone. I think after this weekend, we'll hit it, if I'm being honest. But shout out to all you guys, man. Some great comments today. Loving the debates in the chat. And I hope to see you guys all soon, man. Lloyd, I'll let you close it out.
Well, water never tasted this good. But anyway, yeah, man, like I said, I am buzzing for the fight. I hope it doesn't prove to be a letdown. I don't think it will, because I think that both fighters have regressed to the point where it's actually a 50-50 fight. And it could go either way. I'm slightly leaning towards Kell-Brook, but that could be because I want him to win. So I could be saying that with my more with my heart than my head, so to speak. But the one thing I'm going to be pretty confident in saying is that it's going to be a very entertaining fight. And may the best man win.
May the best man win, man. Shout out to all you guys, man. And we'll catch you all on the show next week. Don't forget, we'll be on the Don Robbie channel on Saturday. And look out for some more videos in the build-up and after the fight as well, man. But until then, enjoy your evening, guys. And I'll catch up with you all soon.